Hey everyone, this is Jorge Soto and you're watching Startups Unedited. Actually, broadcasting from Palo Alto today. I'm super excited to be joined by Paul Berry, who is founder and CEO at Rebel Mouse based in New York City, which I know, Paul, folks are calling Silicon Alley these days. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. It's a beautiful, humid summer New York tropical day. So it's great
Awesome.
to be on. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you take a quick second to sort of tell the audience a little bit about your background. You've done some amazing things, including being CTO at Huffington Post, which now is part of AOL. You've done an incredible sort of just a variety of things. Why don't we just tell folks a little bit about your background and what are you up to these days?
Yeah, so, since this is around founders and entrepreneurs, it did start with my dad. He founded Palo Alto Software. I started writing code when I was 10. I actually, used to put the labels on the discs for him, back the floppy disks, and did tech support, and eventually built the internet business for his software company. And we had a couple viral moments that changed the business completely, and that's what I got hooked on. Someone told me that the first thing you do is what you will always do. And it's kind of an interesting one for, I think, everyone to think about. For me, it really was that moment of having created something that went viral. And then I met Jonah Peretti, who's founder and CEO of BuzzFeed. In 2002, also met Ken Lear, who's the real founder of Huffington Post, around that time. And we worked on crazy projects that Dog Island, and Jonah had done the rejection hotline and blackpeopleloveus.com. And it didn't really make sense as a business. We were weirdos, but it was that joy of chasing these viral things, how and why things spread. So I did help Avaz, which is a nonprofit I'm extremely proud of. They have 40 million plus active members. I was their founding CTO, built their platform. And then Huffington Post, I joined a few months in. I ran product design and engineering until a year after we sold to AOL. And now Rebel Mouse, we're about 4.5 years in.
Absolutely. And as we were discussing earlier, I really believe you're building what the future of media is, which is really, in my mind, this sort of web of distributed content, distributed systems, the integrations. What's your opinion on the future, and maybe not even just, the future alone, but like today, what's the present day state of media consumption, and where do you think it's going to be in, let's say, 5 years?
Yeah, I think it's great that you changed it from let's talk about the future to what's now, because what's happening to everyone in media is, oh my God, the future happened to us. And it happened yesterday, not today and not tomorrow, it happened. And I think the latest algo tweak from Facebook is exaggerating that this feeling of, oh my God, what is this new world that we live in? Mm-hmm. Especially when you look at how well native video continues to perform on Facebook. What people have to realize fully in media is it's not about some conspiracy theory and the plot of Zuckerberg. That's not the right way to look at it. It's that human behavior has changed dramatically quickly in a very short time. My 10-year-old says, oh yeah, Dad, but you're from the 1900s. And it's like, okay, people don't want to go to websites very much anymore. And it's so what is the role of a website? What is the role of email? How do you diversify out of Facebook? But how do you also avoid just not playing the game? And the answer is really to go where they are. And it's now media companies have to learn how to live in all these different native environments. And it's a totally different architecture. It's very, very different strategy. A lot of media companies are waking up and realizing they have exactly the wrong ratio of editors to video producers and their writers. And a new ultra-viral format has emerged, which is readable video. And now so the one constant we're going to see when you look across 5 years is an acceleration of change. There's nothing that indicates we've reached somewhere that's going to hold. What we've seen is that process of, I went to Alaska on vacation. I came back and everyone's catching Pokemon.
I know, and I don't get that, by the way. I think it's a phenomenon. I got to learn it. So,
and it's one that it used to take a few weeks or a month before something to become a phenomenon that you hear in the elevator in the deli and da-da-da. So there's a fantastic book called, I think, Super Intelligence. And I believe that the explosion of the economy we're seeing is not possible, actually, without the fluid exchange of ideas that are possible because of how, in a way, Google's a very primitive way to connect us to information. So here's this new world, and there's an incredibly, there are enormous opportunities. A property that we are very proud to power, called the Dodo, made it to the 5th biggest publisher on Facebook last month. It's like a couple years old, that company. So this is a time of drastic change. I want to be sincere about it. It hurts. There's a lot of people for whom this is going to hurt, and it does hurt. It's not all bad, though, and there's a lot of opportunity created from the people who engage and understand what you obviously do, is that it's about distributed publishing. It's about being everywhere.
Yeah. Let's transition into what it's like to be a CEO of a startup, and just for a quick second, like, what is that experience really like? The media sort of glamorizes it, I think, a bunch. We had the Facebook movie, and I think Bravo tried a series, and then Silicon Valley, which is surprisingly and sadly accurate sometimes. But what is the reality of being that founder, that CEO, when you're taking this idea, trying to build a business from zero, and that whole experience? Tell us a little bit about what that feels like.
Well, it's a little bit like being a heroin addict, I guess. So I haven't been. The highs are very high, and the lows happen very fast, or just as low as the highs. And so I think that I think that the war metaphors that people use are appropriate because of that feeling that you end up having of action suddenly, both positive and negative, that can happen, which I hear soldiers describe of that downtime moment, that how little you can trust the downtime moment, and then how adrenaline packed the action is. It is definitely not for the faint of heart. It requires real staying power. It's definitely very hard. There's a lot. It's so much more complex. In a way, it's not. I knew it was going to be hard, but the things that I didn't realize, how complex, how nuanced things were. I'm a technical founder, but I'm someone who always prided myself in being a manager. I felt like. I felt that was what I'm really good at, and that's my value in the world, is understanding tech and understanding people. I guess it was 3 years in, about a year or a year and a half ago, where I starkly had to realize that just because I imagine it's our culture doesn't mean it is our culture. And so there's a tremendous amount of work that is very tempting also as a technical founder. One of the things you learn in tech pretty quickly is that, engineers are weird, right? So I pride myself in, but one of the things that was harder for me is that I tend to like people so much.
Yeah, I get it completely. And by the way, I'm a non-technical co-founder or founder, so I've been completely miserable for 15 years. That's why I was joking around with you earlier, because I can't actually build anything, right? Like, I can't build it. I can take an idea, Yeah,
being able to get hands-on is great, but at a certain point you need scale. I made a mistake that I think a lot of people do, which is you tend to like people so much that you trust them and you see their faults. So I had some key managers in the company that really were not the culture that I wanted. They really didn't treat others with the type of respect that I wanted. But I overlooked it. Not that I didn't see it, but I asked everybody else to deal with it. Like, yeah, I know that salesperson is a sociopath. But just let's deal with it. And she's the top performer, so let's go ahead and let her manage people. And it took significant, like, realizing a lot of how important it is to have people who can represent you in the way that you would be proud of. And that it's very different, that role of CEO, than building a team of people underneath at a department level. But that's one of infinite amount of hard lessons that I found. So.
Well, you know, I think when you say these things, they really, really hit home, because I think that leadership and being a founder of an organization, and when you're in that leadership position, you really have to care about the team. You know, I've spoken to countless venture investors and founders and CEOs. And when we start talking about the real stuff, no one's like, well, you know, we built this really great feature, right? It was more like, man, you know, we had a great team, or we were able to overcome these obstacles. You know, we cried together and we were able to get over it. You know, those are those moments. I was chatting with a buddy of mine who runs a CRM startup in Menlo Park. And he says, you know what? I have to go on founder dates. Like the founders, we go on dates once a month. His wife's not too happy about it, but you know, they still have to do that, because that relationship, the human component, is so important. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, you know, Paul, if folks want to reach you on social media or listen to your you know, content, or read your content, what's the best sort of handles to reach you?
So I'm very proud of what we do in terms of industry knowledge on our Facebook page at Rebel Mouse, and Twitter. My personal Twitter account is Team Reboot, at Team Reboot. And I think those are the two best ways to sort of follow. If anybody does want to reach out, I you know, on email, it's paul@rebelmouse.com, and I'm happy to, you know, help answer questions or.
And I have to just give folks a heads up. Rebel Mouse is absolutely building what I'd like to call the infrastructure that's powering the current state of media, and absolutely the future. I've had all these ideas of, like, how do you start to integrate 360 and VR and all this stuff, which, you know, maybe I'll bug you sometimes with an email.
Yeah,
and tell you something.
Awesome. That'll be fun. Thanks, George.
Well, have a great day. Thank you so much. You know, I just want to give a silent shout out to the atrocity in you know, in Nice, anyways, which was terrible yesterday. So just my hearts and thoughts, and I know you share the same sentiment to those folks. So anyways, have a great day, Paul, and we'll keep in touch.
Cool.